All right, so students, so we're gonna go through what we went through in the classes, the whole process. So I'll just redo this from scratch. You recognize the project one hammer. So I just redid the UVs to attach these pieces together so there's less seams, and I fixed the stretching over here. But still, even though you don't have those fixes, the idea will be the same on your end. So first up, we'll do a side-by-side with the actual references. So here, references to know what we're working with. So here, all right. So I'll go quicker than in class because you can pause this as much as you like. All right. So let's start with the middle part. Okay, so we'll create a group, Control G. In that group, we'll make a fill layer that will drop directly in the group. Okay, so we'll call this the, let's say wood, so which is the, let's say middle part. So here, this is going to be the base, and this needs to have a mask, a black mask. In that mask, we're going to add a paint layer, just so that whenever we select this part in the mask, so we select over here with the mesh fill, so just one click, or if you want to marquee select, this works as well. So having a paint layer makes it so that you can then, if on more complex models, for example, add some paint and then paint over where you would like it to merge, as opposed to having it directly in the mask over here and not having a paint layer. So here's that. So we'll change the color of this to make it sure that we see what we're doing. Okay, perfect. So this, so this is actually the head and not the middle. We can duplicate this twice, or Control D. So this is going to be the middle part, and this is going to be the handle. Since the handle is at the bottom, I'll put this at the bottom of the layer stack. The handle, the middle, which is in the middle, I'll put it in the middle of the layer stack, and the head at the top of the layer stack. So that said, I'll change colors for both the middle and the handle. So I'll select the base and assign it a new color just to make sure that my mask is working properly. So right now, what happens is that I have the red material that's on top that has this, and I didn't change the mask for this one yet, so we don't see the blue because it's underneath the red. So we'll just make sure that we assign the right parts. So with pressing X, I can paint over this part, and then I press X again to switch to white so that I can select the middle part. And then I'll do the same over with the handle. And then I'll put the top part in black and put the bottom part in white. So now over here, let's put this to a different color. Let's pick green. Bam. Okay, delete this. Perfect. So we have our three parts. I suggest you save at this point. So file save, just so that if anything happens, you have a backup. All right. So now the base is all set up. So we'll start with the materials. So as shown in the class, so we'll do the idea of the lasagna here. So I'll start with the middle part, just so it's more simple. So I'll color pick the color. I'll compare it. It's pretty close to this. Let's see in terms of roughness if the paint is because the paint is reflecting a lot. So let me see. Over here, the red seems to be a little more uh, towards the yellow side. So let me see. Oh yeah, it was better over here. Okay, let me I'll just repick from here. Okay, this is way better. Okay, so that I'm satisfied with. So this is the base color. I'll just lower the roughness a little bit because I find it a little too reflective. Okay. And now it's especially on the edges that we see it over here. This is what we get in the pictures. The rest is pretty plain. Okay, in terms of roughness. Okay, so let's go with this, and we'll do the wood. So we'll do another fill layer. We'll look into the materials. I'll look for wood. I'll just pick just whichever, to be honest. I just want the lines. So since I have a fill layer already, I, the fact that I just simple click on this will assign it to here. Yeah, so over here. This is a stylized wood. Obviously, this is not what we're looking for, but you know, we could make it work. Let's just try this one. Wood plane. Update. Okay. Okay, that's not too bad. Let's rotate this. So through rotation over here, 90 degrees. Perfect. I want less knots because I don't like those. Knots intensity. Okay. We just want the wood grain. That's perfect. It's very subtle in the reference, the wood. So from here, I think what I'll do is, well, first I'll start by renaming this wood base. This will go underneath since the wood is below the red in this picture. What we'll do is we will sort of try and match the color over here. So I can play around with the settings, go into the parameters, wood color. Oh, this, find something that's less saturated. Okay, this is not too bad. And then I want less contrast. I don't know if there's a contrast over here. I can still add a filter and just lower the contrast. Contrast over here. So to have the lines less apparent. Meh, it's not really doing what I want, but anyways, it's for a video game, technically, so it doesn't matter much. Maybe I can add levels and remove the blacks so that I get less contrast. I could pick over here. Let's try removing red. It's not what we want. Anyways, okay, I'll just leave it as is. We don't see it much anyways. Okay, so from there, so the wood is underneath. Oh, okay, I think I'll do like that. Okay, wood underneath. So I have the red paint on top. So base paint. So as you can see, we see the wood through here. The wood veining. It's pretty. It works, but it's not like that on the reference. So there's no wood showing through. So we'll just remove the height from the wood. over here. So we'll go through height in terms of channels, and I'll put this to 0. Oh, so right now it's not through the height, it's through the normal map. So over here, put this to 0. And now there's no normal information. Okay, so here, perfect. So we want to add those little dots over there. Um, so I'll try to show you the technique I wanted to show you in class. So let's say, okay, so we'll create a black mask over here. Actually, I'll create a white mask one of the few times because most of it is going to show up. And then I'll add paint. I'll take my brush. I'll do something really not precise with my pen tablet. So I need to color in black so that I remove. So I won't do anything very precise, just to sort of figure out where the spots are. And I'll show you a little trick right after. Okay, another one here. This one here, this. Okay, not too bad. Some little ones over here. Okay, and we'll add the smaller ones later. There's a couple ones at the top. I tend to work in orthographic just so that it flattens the whatever I'm projecting onto it. Okay, let's add something here, a little bit here as well. So you see it's nothing perfect, it's very organic. Let me switch views. So let's say this is this side. So F to zoom out, to focus on the item. And then over here, there's one. Okay, let's say that it's like this. And we have another one over here, a big one. Oops. I may be painting the same thing as on the other side, but you know, I don't really mind. It doesn't have to be perfect, it has to just make sense. So over here and over here. Okay. So now, you know how the paint spots um, affect the surface? I mentioned the slope blur the other day in class, so we'll use exactly this method, whereas we'll create edgeware around the paint here. So I'll do a filter. Over here, I'll do blur and slope blur, blur slope. So you see how it creates these little dents on the edges where it's exactly what we're looking for. It's just a little bit too strong. So we'll change it to minimum, and then we'll lower the intensity. By going with a higher divider, it will make the intensity less intense. So, oh, this is sort of where we want to be. So I'm satisfied with this, but I'm lacking the contrast. So the shapes are more clearly defined. So I'll just do a levels, and then I'll go like this and like this. Aha. So I'll go a little bit more than what I need to, and then I'll do, I think, put it a bit stronger. And to make it more organic, I think I'll do this. I'll duplicate this, but do it on a much bigger scale. So this being the slope blur that's more refined, and this one I'll use instead of the default noise, I'll use a Perlin noise. So custom noise to pick my own. Oops, over here, Perlin, Perlin, Perlin noise. I'll crank the opacity. So that way, and I'll change the tiling. So that way it creates chaos in the spots. And this is way too high. But so it removes the roundness of the brush strokes that I had and creates more like chaotic shapes. And I could actually change it a little bit more. Oh, this is not too bad. You see how it becomes way more organic. So by doing so, we can then add the slope blur that's way more detailed. And I think that will be it. So it kind of makes sense with the reference. It's not a one-to-one kind of relationship, but it still does feel like it's the same kind of wear. So that's it for that. So what we'll do now is that the paint has thickness that you can see over here. This thickness, you can see the difference between the both of them. So we'll just add some height to the paint so that it has this little thickness. Actually, before my levels, I'll just add a blur to remove those little artifacts that the slope blur created. So by adding a filter, going over here, doing just a normal blur, it smooths out everything. So through here, I just want a smidge. So let's say 0.15. That's great. And then I'll just cram in the numbers. And so yeah, it's pretty homogenetic. So you see how the shapes went from this, which had a lot of roundness, to this, which is a lot more chaotic, is a lot more natural. So the slope blur just really does this. So again, it's the same principle as the lasagna idea, whereas you start with the bolder strokes and then you finalize with the finer ones. And then the blur is just a way to sort of have control over the transition by adding the levels, which crams the values. So now I feel that the transition in between the wood and the paint is too big. So what I'll do is I'll lower the height intensity of this channel only. So now you see I'll make it a lot more subtle. Okay, that's great. I'm still not really satisfied with the wood. I feel again that the lines are showing way too much. I'll probably changing the tiling to make it bigger would um, solve part of the problems that we're having. So if I, um, oops, no, no, it's not really helping. So what I'll do in between, I'll add just a fill layer that is white or gray, and I'll just add the color, remove any excessive channels, and I'll just lower the opacity so that it masks. Um, it just affects this a little bit and not too much. So I was lowering the height and there's no height to this, there's just color. So this is why nothing was happening. So I'll put it at base color and I'll lower the opacity. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'll do the opposite. I'll put the white below. I'll put this at 100 and I'll lower the opacity of the base color of the wood. And this I'll put to a gray. Yeah, that's a lot closer. I'm less distracted with the lights. Okay, so that, then what else is there? So there's other small bumps that are there. So for this, I think I'll just add a fill with like black and white spots that I'm gonna add contrast to those. So I'll just go over the blur and add those over here because it's gonna mask the red paint anyways. So I'll just do here, add fill. I'll do a BNW, black and white spots, like this. We'll do invert to invert the, it's not changing much. I just need to play around with the values then. So first off, I'm just seeing my noise pattern because it's in normal mode at the moment. So this is not really what I want. I wanted to see the final results blending with the spots that we made already. So since we're adding black onto the texture, I want this to be in multiply. So now we can see the dots from underneath. Okay, it's not giving me the effect that I want, so I'll either change the tiling of this. It's not too bad. If I remove, if I lower the opacity of this. I feel it's a bit repetitive though. So yeah, I'll just go with another black and white spots in the textures over here. So I'll just drop it in the grayscale here, which will just replace the previous texture. It goes back to the initial values, but the tiling, so the tiling stays the same. But if I want to have it more or less apparent, it's through here. Okay, so this works for me. So there you see. So we added the bigger details, and then we have the smaller ones over here. So that's it. I'll still lower this a little bit in terms of opacity because it's a lot less visible than the other ones. Okay. I think I'll blur it so that, because the spots are more round here. So I'll just put it below the blur. Okay, it works. It creates more small variations. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Let's go with that. And then, so it's not very apparent, but on any surfaces, there's always surface details. So just for the sake of it, for the visual interest, on top of everything else, I'll just add some visual bumps and so I'll just create a new layer, a new fill for just the height this time. So height selected only. So in this, what I'll do is I'll find a grunge. So anything chaotic, I don't want to see a repetition. So grunge, and from there I'll try pretty much. The concrete ones are great for starts, a starting point. Let me try this one. Oops, sorry, I'll add a black mask. I'll create a fill. I'll drop this over here. Okay, and since I didn't play around with the values over here, there's nothing showing up. So whenever I play around, I get this nice effect over here. I feel it's a bit strong still, so I'll just lower the height a little bit so that, you know, it's barely visible, but it catches the light just more interestingly. And then, so there's a couple scratches that we saw in previous pictures. You see there's scratches in the glossiness over here. So this we can add as well. What's going on? I think it was the last picture. That's why. Yeah, so we have a couple of scratches here and there. So I think I'll add that too. I'm on the fence. It's mostly like surface details. So I don't think I'll remove the color of this. I think I'll just add it on top of the rest. So here, what's this? We have the um, general, well, the overall noise. Okay, to this we'll add the scratches. I can add, so since this is a height um, channel, height layer, I can add over here a new fill with just scratches because this is going to just affect the surface, the height, sorry. So right now it's inversed, so we can see the bump is going towards us and not inside. So we'll just invert this. So yeah, now it's looking right. And then what we'll do is we'll make sure that we're not in normal mode for this one. So we'll look at our mask, Alt and click. So the scratches are dark. So what do we need to do? We need to put it at multiply to add darkness to the previous darkness information. So now we get to see the scratches. They're really subtle though. I'll just, because of the opacity over here. So what I'll do is I'll crank the opacity through here and I'll lower the opacity of the main layer. And probably I can increase. Okay, so yeah, since the initial layer is not at 100%, it's sort of giving me issues. So I'll just duplicate this to have it on its own layer. It's not working the way I set it up. So I'll remove the scratches from the previous layer. I'll remove the base from the new scratches layer, and I'll put this one to normal so that the scratches are on their own, are independent in terms of opacity. So I'll lower the initial bumpy noise over here, and then we have the scratches over here. They look great. I like that. Perfect. On your end, probably since you have more seams, so UV seams, there's more cuts throughout the models. Probably you'll have to change the tiling of these textures to triplanar. On my end, there's just one cut, and it's on the other side, I believe. So by pressing, I think it's Shift and right click, you can turn around the light. Yeah, I think my seam is over here. Yes, we can see it here where it doesn't continue. So we'll just do a triplanar over here so that along this seam there's no disconnect anymore. So that's that. It's starting to look great. I I'll do some bigger scratches, but I'll do some smaller ones too, I think. So over here, um, I'll duplicate this and I'll change the tiling. So I'll do 2. So to have even 3. Okay, that's more subtle and more. Okay, that's great. I like that. So we'll lower this a little bit, and then since it's normal, it's hiding the previous information. We're just making sure that it's triplanar still, so that we don't have the prior issue. And then, so just looking at the mask, we see that the scratches are black, so we need to do a multiply. So now, if you look, there's small scratches and there's bigger scratches. So if you are not satisfied with the positioning, you can still go over here and play around with the position of your noise. When it's triplanar, you don't have the gizmos over here. So when you do a UV projection, you'll see, so you can move it through here. But when it's triplanar, since it's in 3D, so there's 3 ways that it's projecting it. So you have the gizmo into the 3D view. If you press W, you can move. If you press R, you can scale. If you press E as an echo, you can rotate, just like in any 3D software. Okay, so I'll just make these a little smaller. And yeah, so these are a bit apparent, so I think I'll just add paint on top, multiply, and just remove some of those, painting in black. But it's since we'll cover that later. This is what happens when we paint on a height channel. When you paint black, it just creates this dent, so we don't want that. We'll cover that in a later course. So right now I'll just lower the opacity of the whole thing so that it's just subtle. Okay, so now oops. I think what I want to do is maybe add a bit of darkness over here. So, you know what? Let's leave it at that for now. I'll do the paint spots because I don't want to get too far. This is your first assignment, first project in Painter, so let's just keep it a bit minimal. Okay, so the paint spots, so the paint detail is on top of the rest, so this you'll need to add onto the rest. I forgot one thing though, I mentioned it in class, whereas you technically should do always a color variation. Uh, so here we have just the red paint, but just for visual satisfaction, just for it's subtle in real life, but it's on everywhere. It's what makes it more um, believable, more how should we say, realistic. So I'll just copy the initial layer. I'll remove anything in the mask. I could have just created a fill, to be honest. So I'll remove mask. Oh no, I'll need that later. So I'll just use a different shade of red. Um, let's do darker, for example. And then this shade of red, I'm gonna create a mask that is gonna be like grungy again, something that's chaotic. So let me do this one, for example. So I need to do a fill first. Add fill over here. I don't want the height. I just want, oh, so I could just simply disable the height over here. I just want color. So I just want a color variation. So I think I'll just increase the size of this. Actually, I'll do a triplanar because probably on the other side it's not looking great. So triplanar, it's going to project it from everywhere. And yeah, so I could go either lighter or darker, but the idea is to just have these subtle variations in terms of color. I can even blur this a little bit just so that it's smooth and it's not too apparent. But just a smidge. So we still see the line over here, but I'm fine with that. Okay, now what's happened, we added the red on top of the other one. So what it does is that it creates an error, a visual error, whereas the darker red is also affecting the spots. So what do we need to do? We need to group those together, and from that group, we'll be able to mask this. So what I'll do is I'll copy this mask, I'll select either by pressing Control or Shift the previous one. I'll then group those two. This is going to be my base color. Let's say red color paint. And we'll do paste into mask over here so that this exact stack of masks, of actions, is exactly over here. So what we'll do here is we'll just clear the mask and we'll remove it altogether. So now we have the base paint, we have the color variation, which affects the color, but not the spots anymore. And we have the um, we have the dots over here that are hiding both these reds together. So if we close the group, this group is the paint with the paint spots. I feel my paint spots are a bit bigger, so I could still go back to here and just make it a lot more, oops, on the other end, a lot more towards the white side. So it's hiding most of, then I'm losing the smaller noise, which is this one. So this is slope blur over here. I'll just increase it a little bit. Because the blur is too intense, it hides the details. Anyways, we get the jagged effect. Um, I feel that it should be a little bit blurred a little bit more overall. When you look over here, I think it's just the height that, yeah, let's just lower the height. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Then we'll do the paint spots. So this is the red color. the wood. Here we have just the overall noise. We have the scratches that I didn't rename. So scratches. Okay, so now you see it starting to make sense, whereas it's a lot clearer over here, the idea of the lasagna that I was telling you about. Whereas like the base is really at the bottom and the rest is going on top. The smaller the details, the more on top it is. So over here, I'll do a fill for the, I'll do some dark spots and some white spots for pink. Let's see if, yeah, there's a couple other spots, but there's not that many. So let's start with the white ones. So add black mask. So this is paint spots. Over here, we'll do just the color for the moment. We'll find a noise. Let's do black and white spots. Is it showing up? I didn't put it in the right spot. I put it in the base color. I should have put it in the mask. So if we do add fill over here, drag this there. So over here, it does what we want to do. You see on this side, the wood is a lot more beige. So I can just increase. It's a give and take. You sort of average it out. So since now I have the white paint spots, I feel that the white of the wood was too close to the paint spots. So I'll just adjust this so that the wood is a bit darker. So over here, and then, so I want the paint spots to be a lot more visible. So I'll go back in the paint spots in the mask, and I have those black and white spots. I'll just do a levels and increase the intensity there. So there's some other there. So I could, the spots are way more like round, so I could blur this before just a little bit, so that then again when I use the levels I get something that's more round. You see how the shape is a lot more similar to this. So since this has a thickness, we'll add height to this layer. And again, we'll just put it in positive so that it sticks out from the paint. And since this paint is less shiny than the one underneath, I think I'll just lower the roughness. So I'll create roughness and I'll put it at something low. So to make it more matte. So you see how the light hits here, but not here. So this, because prior to this, we had something that was glossy. So it didn't do really what we wanted. It's quite subtle because of the white, so we don't really get to see much, but it's there. Okay, so I think I'll just lower the opacity of the darker red base color over here. That's it. Okay, so I think I'll stop here for now, and I'll do 2 other videos for the 2 other last parts. Oh, I forgot the black spots, but it's the same idea. So I could still do paint spots and then duplicate this. And then I could put this to a dark color. So this is on top of the white. It's at the same exact position, so we see it here. The black ones didn't seem to have as much thickness, but So we'll just lower the height. So 0.03, half the value. And then what we'll do, as opposed to creating everything anew, we can just do a seed, which if we do random, it just regenerates the same idea. So right now it's black and white spots. So it recreates the same thing, but generating in a different manner. So with other randomness values. So right here, I'm not really satisfied with it's. These are too big, so I'll just lower the. So just that we have visual interest all over. I could use either a warp or a slow blur to change the shape. So let's do another slow blur just to have some more craziness in the shapes. Here, you know what? I'm happy with that. So here it creates, it's too intense, so I'll divide it. So 10 times less if intense. I feel it's a bit too dark, so I think I'll just lower the opacity. Yeah, I think that's it. So we have the scratches, we have the indents in terms of paint, we have the white paint spots and the black paint spots. I feel that the wood underneath is a bit more shiny, so I'll just add some roughness. So going towards 0, make it more reflective, and going towards 1, make it less reflective, so more rough. There's not much of a difference. If I go over here, roughness, maybe I can remove the roughness from the wood and just use, yeah, that's a lot better. And just use the roughness from the white from below. So now we see that it really has more of the desired effect. I mean, it's not perfect. It's hazy over here. We would technically need to add like a black contour to add this final touches to realism, but we'll see that at a later class. But so far, it makes sense with what we have as a reference. I think instead of lowering the opacity for the base color, we could actually add a black mask over here and just do a clouds. So do a fill and clouds so that there's a color variety in between because in the wood over here you see it's darker, over here it's a little bit more white. So if we add contrast, so the tiling is too big so we don't get to see much. Now if we change the contrast, yeah. So we have those parts where there's more white and there's parts where there's more wood coming through. So it feels more natural. All right. So that's that. Too reflective. And you know what? This is just base. All right. So I'm just adding a little bit more complexity to what we've seen in class, just because in class there's lots of questions and I want to go through everyone being at the same level. But if you want to push the project and sort of be closer to the reference, I feel this is why I needed to do this. So right now I'll just finish with this and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.